this morning, but thank you for bearing with us. I will begin the meeting by reading the required legal notice. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by Metropolitan Board of Fair Commissioners today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the board's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. My name is Jasper Hendricks, Chair, and I call this meeting to order. The first order of business will be the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved. To approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. There's no opposition, so the minutes have passed unanimously. Next up will be public comment period. Was there anyone who signed up for public comment period this morning, or anyone who would like to speak for 2 minutes? Nobody? No one? Okay. All right, going once, going twice. All right. Thank you. Moving on. Next, we will have our monthly informational reports. We will begin with our campus partner updates. And Lindsay with Nashville Soccer.
Morning. Happy New Year to you all. We started our preseason training. First of all, I'm Lindsay Paola, the Chief Business Officer. We started our preseason training Sunday, so the guys are down in Florida. We have a preseason match that's open to our season ticket members on February 1st at Geodis Park. You, of course, are all welcome to attend as well. And our first match is February 22nd at Geodis Park at 7:30 p.m. And then today we're announcing all of our themes for our matches. We've got some exciting themes coming up, so that'll come out later today in a press release. And that's all I had. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations on all that's happening over there. It's exciting news. Thank you. Next will be Dirk from Market Street.
Good morning, Commissioners, Director Womack. Happy New Year as well. And a very brief update for me also today, a leasing update for 445 Park Commons. We achieved a nice milestone over the holidays. The building's now third leased, so we have 111 out of 335 units now subscribed, pretty equally distributed between market rate and affordable units. We're awfully excited about all the new residents that are now enjoying the property. Barista Parlor continues to be open. I encourage you to go there. I see a cup right there. Thank you, sir, for doing that. And the other retail spaces are being in the process of getting permitted and to be built out. We've got 2 of those that will be underway here in early 2025. I'll let David give an update on Fair Plaza, but it is substantially complete. And when the snow melts, we hope some people get out there and really start to enjoy it. Our big focus in this fiscal quarter is going to be continuing our pre-development efforts on Block A, which is Lot 10. And that is a process that we kicked off schematic design for last week with our design team. And we're hopeful that if the capital markets cooperate, we can have that phase of the project under construction in this calendar year, maybe in the fourth quarter. So that would be pretty exciting to keep the momentum going on the campus. We'll certainly be working with Director Womack and all the other campus partners on logistics for that, about to begin. But, wish us luck with interest rates and what's happening in the new year so we can get that project seasoned and ready for development. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I know I ask you every time, but remind me, Block A, Lot 10, which parcel is that?
It's directly to the north of the supporters entrance to Geodis. So okay. It's currently where the accessible parking is for Geodis Park. Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next will be Bob Sargent from Track Enterprises.
Thank you. Just quick update. It's winter time for our car racing, kind of off season. So this is the time of year we finish the schedules. We've put those out to the public. We are going to have an awards banquet kind of kick off in March 16th. So we'll get more information to you all to invite you to that. This again, the time of year that we finish all the rules for all the divisions, sponsorships, and themes for our races too. So we're busy working on all that. Getting ready to hire a general manager, so we'll have him at the next meeting to announce, and things are really moving forward, and work with the Fairgrounds staff for all the cleaning up and anything we can do at the facility to upgrade that, as we're kind of in a holding pattern with Bristol. Any questions for anybody else? Okay.
Thanks for the schedule, Bob. Just one question. Obviously, we've kind of finished some of the infrastructure up against the edge. How's that look to you? How do you feel about the improvements that have been made out front there?
Yeah, I think the whole campus in general, as we've talked and listened to Laura, the upgrades and the new parts of the campus are looking great. So obviously now we're still focused on getting the speedway up to grade 2, but everything's really good. Coliseum Way, Speedway Alley through in between us, it looks good there. We constantly work with the staff about parking for our events. But other than that, I think everything looks really good on the campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will go on with our capital project updates, and we'll begin with Mr. Ed Henley.
Good morning. Good morning, board, staff, council. You all should have in your packets the dashboards that I present to you on a monthly basis. I'll be starting as usual with my caveat at the beginning of my presentation. The numbers that I'll be presenting this morning are in arrears. I usually say that those are about 45 to 60 days in arrears. Typically, when you start the year, that gets extended just a little bit. The holidays do impact, reviews and submissions and reporting. And so with that being said, I'll start the presentation, but just wanted to address that. One thing that I will highlight as far as the Fairgrounds improvement projects, the blue sheet. One thing you'll notice, we're still kind of in that same, nearly 100% complete mark. Again, as we continue to expend funds, obviously related to the direction of the staff, but we've continued to monitor that budget. No issues in that area, and quite honestly, I'm really excited to still say that there's funds in that bucket for things that we can utilize in 25. Fair Park. Which I don't want to steal too much of David's thunder. But again, as we push through the next maybe 2 to 3 months, you'll start to see that project budget pretty much become stagnant as we close that phase out. So one of the things that I'll highlight, again, is there's not been a lot of movement on this one since the last time I reported. However, there'll be a set of invoices that'll be coming in, I would say, the next 2 to 3 weeks that'll impact that budget. And then at our next report, be able to highlight where we're standing as far as funds remaining related to Fair Park Phase 2. And then infrastructure, part 2, again, from a expenditure standpoint, not a lot of movement from the last time I reported. However, what you will see is some of the line items that are starting to be adjusted. Again, as we're moving through the design and the estimating period, we're getting better understanding of where those budgetary numbers are coming in, and so those are starting to be allocated more into the construction line item there. So you'll have noticed that increased, and the overall contingency has decreased. I will say this, as dollars have been spent there, the contingency is still in very good shape. In terms of the remaining or outstanding amounts to spend, we're still above 8% contingency with what we have there. So feel fairly confident about that. Just wanted to highlight that as far as change from the last presentation.
Great update as always, and good explanation of the numbers. And maybe Dave's going to touch on this, but can you just remind us, especially me, kind of what the material projects in Fair Park Phase 2 and infrastructure that we should be thinking about as the main big bucket items for the next sort of 6 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think of course, we're now named Coliseum Way. The upper portion of that is is largely completed, but there's still dollars to be expended there. And then the lower Coliseum Way, again, obviously approaching the Exposition Center. We do have the Windgrove intersection as a significant portion of that. And then we do have additional utility and infrastructure work that's going to be happening. Fair Park Phase 2, by and large, what you see there today is pretty much what you'll see. There's some continuing evaluation of future phase projects there, but as far as what I would say you'd expect in the coming months, you've probably seen what you'll see there as far as construction. We just have to have the invoicing and closeout completed.
Does that, the lower Coliseum Way includes the widening of the bridge? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next will be David.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. So we've got 5 projects in various stages. So we have Upper Coliseum, which is Fair Plaza Speedway Alley, and that one is substantially complete. Then we have, for the infrastructure part 2, we have the Lower Coliseum Way, and we have the Windgrove intersection. The Windgrove intersection is currently underway. We're trying to get NES out there to start working on the power pole relocates, and then immediately after that, we're hoping on the permit to come in, and then we'll go right to work on that one. The Lower Coliseum Way, we're in the final permitting and budgeting for that one, and we're hoping to have all that wrapped up here within the next 6 weeks, and then we'll also have that one underway, and that will be the continuation from the Upper Coliseum Way, which is Fair Plaza Speedway Alley. That'll take us all the way out there. So, and that's actually going to be a really, really nice addition when it gets done. The other 2 additional projects that we have Lot 2, which is the multi-purpose lot, which is right over here next to the the art structure and 50 Forward. So that one is also in final permitting and budgeting. So hopefully within the same time frame, about 6 weeks, hopefully we can kind of get that one going. And then today you have an MOU for the Phase 4 sidewalk for NDOT. So that's over at the dog park. Really excited about getting that one going because they were kind of sitting out their periphery. Although they're not tied exactly to everything we're doing here, they do affect everything. So that'll also be a nice addition. Really going to help out over there at the dog park. That's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions?
Questions? Yes.
The dog park sidewalk, is that outside the fence there?
Yes.
So all the way that corner of Craighead and Bransford?
Yes.
Okay.
And it won't have the same width, the 10-foot width that you're noticing out there. So it'll narrow down a little bit, but it will have that access along there. So it'll help out a lot. It'll clean that up a little bit too.
Yeah, as a avid Nashville runner, I appreciate the continuation of the sidewalk, so I don't have to be chased by the dogs on the inside. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that whole roadway, everything there is coming together nice. Give it some more time. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. So next we will move on to our division updates, and we will begin with finance with Ms. Cetrice Allen.
Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. The financial information presented today is preliminary, and all the revenue and expenses for December 2024 may not have been recorded to the ledgers as of January 13th, 2025, when this report was created. The information is a depiction of 50% of the fiscal year. So we'll start with revenue. We are at about $1.9 million in revenue. Expenses are about $2.5 million, resulting in a net loss of approximately $629,000. Depreciation expense is $682,256. So the total net loss is roughly $1.3 million. The next section of the report is our annualized budget. It's a snapshot or summary of our projected revenues for the fiscal year. The next 2 sections will be revenue and expenses by division. Our revenue for flea market compared to the budget is showing a deficit of about $197,653. The contributing factors, as we discussed at last meeting, is an overestimation of revenue, the reduction of dealer and patron participation due to the end of the rent relief program. In order to address the vendor and patron participation, we have implemented 2 initiatives. One, reintroducing the vendor referral program and also free parking on Fridays. We have also decided to consolidate the flea market into 2 buildings and renting the third one when possible. And I think we'll start that this month. Corporate sales has a surplus of about $7,000. Fair has a surplus of $267,155. Contracts has a deficit of $88,742, which will change because we have received our ground lease payment of $196,000, which will be on the next report. And other, there's a surplus of $74,500, which is pretty much interest. For expenses, we are tracking over budget at $182,100, largely due to the fair. The fair is a 10-day event held in September. However, expenses occur throughout the year for the fair, to name a few: payroll, utilities, supplies, insurance, low-cap telecommunication. Corporate sales is also slightly over budget, and that is due to some reallocations of expenses that need to post that haven't, such as utilities and low-cap and ITS. The next section is the gain and loss. Essentially, that is the same information that's at the top of the report. It just shows how the divisions are contributing to the gain or the loss for the month. And if we review that section, we'll see that the fair is the main contributor of the loss for this month. Next is the flea market, then contracts. The last section of the report is other accounts. D&D concession balance is about $5,000. We plan to utilize all of this funding for this fiscal year, so this account will be dissolved. Our property tax proration is $111,000 roughly. On our Asian report, we have approximately $30,300 in outstanding invoices. All of the promoters have been contacted and invoiced. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It is pretty much, it's about one of these, the agent report items. When I was reviewing this last night, I saw that, I guess, the crafty bastards, the building rental fee was traded for advertising credit of like $7,000.
Yes.
How do we calculate that? Like, how do we, like, is that reflected also in the budget?
How that'll be, it's in the budget. It's going to show as a revenue and then an expense. So it's going to be a wash because we traded. So we would have gained the revenue had we received the monies. However, we're going to be utilizing their advertising. So that would have been an expense on our side for the uses of service. So that's going to be a wash, but it is reflected in the numbers.
And the main part of the advertising is to get more exposure for the market and for the facility through the Nashville scene and their sister publications.
Yeah, a couple questions. So Teresa, as always, thank you for your wonderful report. I'm not kidding when I say this is so much easier to understand, probably because I've gotten smarter, but not because the reports have gotten any different. But a couple things, just to make sure I understand. Well, first of all, remind me what is within the contracts line item. That's obviously the racing program. What else goes in there?
Well, racing is in there. Pepsi is in there. Ground lease is in there.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you add like a paren of like what's in contracts
will do.
just to help me? That's more just like ministerial. I mean, I think the big picture question is more for Anthony and Jasper is like, Satrice, I think, just described something that we can touch on in the strategic plan, but like, we have to do a flea market. We have a flea market that's currently is a money-losing endeavor. We have a fair that's a large money-losing endeavor, and we just need to grapple with that. I mean, they're going to be revenue negative for the year, and I don't think it's for anything that we're necessarily not doing, apart from maybe we need to do a little bit more marketing. I think we need to talk about that, but like, I mean, those just don't seem to pencil out. So that's more of a comment, nothing for the numbers, but just something I noticed as I'm looking through is these continue to be under, and I'm not feeling good about the prospects for them turning around. So that's my statement. We can carry that over in the strategic plan discussion too.
When will the advertising start with the scene?
I'll have to get that information. Ryan Jensen, our event services manager, will have that, and I'll send that to you.
Thanks.
I had a question, but it just flew out of my head. But yes, no, thank you. Thank you for your report. If I have any questions, I'll follow up with you in email. But it wasn't anything major. It was, come on. Oh, so so in the two programs that you guys have implemented or decided to implement, when do you think that we can like figure out whether or not there's been some kind of impact, with that? Because I know you just announced it last month, but as far as like, figuring out like when can we maybe like evaluate it and like see if whether or not it's working or if we need to do a little bit more.
I don't want to speak for the events manager, but I would say a quarter, at least a quarter.
Okay. That's fair. Good. All right. Thank you. So moving on, if there's no other questions, we will have our personnel update, operations, and executive director's report.
Okay, I do not have a report for personnel. For operations, you've got the event calendar draft in your packet. I do want to draw attention to a new event that we were fortunate to host yesterday. We hosted the Fisk Women's Gymnastics Meet, which was amazing. It was a 4-team meet, so it was Fisk hosting Rutgers, William and Mary, and Wilberforce universities. So it was fantastic. I really hope that it can possibly bring us more of that, since they don't really have a gym of their own. They really loved Expo 1, and we also are very confident we could support them in Expo 3 as well for the amount of space that they needed for the meet. But it was an amazing experience with all the families that traveled in and all the students that came to support them. So it was just a really unique opportunity for us, and we enjoyed it immensely. As far as the executive director's report, the only thing that I just wanted to mention is, we had the Snowpocalypse event on Friday, and, those events can be very challenging for staff to get in and to handle snow removal. So I just wanted to thank all the staff that made it in on Friday. We've got added responsibilities to make sure that Coliseum Way is clear for our residents at 445 Park Commons. So we tried to stay in touch with them throughout the day. We pre-salted everything because we did have an event this weekend as well that opened on Saturday. So it was a lot of work on Friday, and then again on Saturday morning where our operations manager, Ronnie Haywood, came in to make sure everything was clear and safe. So I just really wanted to thank them for their efforts Friday and Saturday for snow removal.
Yes, I did hear that the event yesterday was very well attended. some people were talking about it at the Capitol when I was on my way out to come over here. So it's really good. All right. So moving on. Any questions? Questions? Yes.
Just two questions. One question. On the snow removal salting, which areas does our staff at the Fairgrounds do versus parks or the city or other campus partners? Like, how do we kind of split that all up? How's that work?
So Wedgwood Avenue from I-65 to Craighead is on NDOT's secondary route schedule. So they'll do that main road. What Geodis and Market Street take care of their footprints, Lot 9 and the sidewalk surrounding. We are responsible, so we took care of Benton because we didn't want to wait for NDOT because those ancillary streets are kind of last on the list because they need to get those larger thoroughfares cleared first. So we didn't wait. We went ahead and did Benton. We did Coliseum Way. We did all of the sidewalks and access points to here. If we needed to, we would have been prepared to do we did the bus stop to help transit if there was, to keep the buses moving. And then we would have been prepared to do the remaining sidewalks that would have come at the end of the snow removal along with the greenway.
I mean, that's just a great opportunity it sounds like it's not an opportunity, it's an example of collaboration and where we can really work together, and we have worked together with our campus partners in the city. So I think that's a great result.
Any other questions? All right. So next, we'll go into old business, and we'll pick up discussion on the strategic work plan.
So I think where we left off was a discussion about changing the mission statement. Sent you all some information for direction from you since the last meeting about where you would like to see that mission statement head towards. We had talked about two main things: financial sustainability and honoring the charter. So I also had sent over just a reminder of excerpts from both the private acts and Chapter 11 of the Metro Charter, which does talk about what our responsibilities are. So, Todd, thank you for sending your thoughts on Sunday. If there are any specifics that you'd like to see, other than what, I didn't have time. I didn't send you Todd's because I knew he was going to be here and you guys could talk about that. But
you knew I was going to talk about it.
I did know you were going to talk about it, so I don't want to steal your thunder. So I'll kind of turn it over.
Jasper, do you mind if I just kind of give my thought? So, number one, I wasn't at the last meeting. Apologies. But I did read the minutes and kind of understand the sort of discussion. That makes sense. And I'm glad to hear the discussion was really about sustainability and charter activities, because those are the two real things that we have in front of us that are challenges. We know we have to do these charter activities because the people of the city have said these are charter activities that we have to do. As I just said when we were looking through the financials, unfortunately, a lot of those charter activities run revenue negative. So we have to figure out how to square that with being both revenue positive and doing those charter activities. That's a puzzle we continue to work on. But all that to say, taking a step back, what I wrote down as sort of not exactly a mission statement, but when I think about the Fairgrounds, I think about it as a multi-purpose recreation and event campus for Nashville. Like, I want us to be thinking about this as it's a large campus. It has many tenants. It has many things happening. There's an opportunity to do a lot of large events here, to do different kinds of events, and especially for the people of Nashville. So that's really how I've been thinking about it. And I've been harping for, I don't know, how long we've been on this board now, like a long time, about we should really think of ourselves as a landlord and a convener and an operator and a coordinator among the many stakeholders, while still balancing the fact that we are an operator and we need to determine what things we should operate directly versus what things are more important for us to outsource. Now, some of those things, I mean, I'm going to defer to Laura, obviously, as we should as the board, to the details, but those are the things to think about to try to pull those levers towards the tension of we have to do these charter activities, but we have to be financially viable. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. That's the top line is multipurpose recreation and event campus for Nashville. That's what the Nashville Fairgrounds feels like to me. And then the two sort of pillars for us to think about is we are a landlord. We, not a pejorative term, and Dirk wouldn't think of it as a pejorative term because he is a landlord, but we have campus partners that we've agreed to. We have long-term obligations to them, so we want to help them be successful. That's what I mean by a landlord. And we also operate events directly. Like we just had the Great Fisk event, which I'm just super excited about. I didn't even know about that. That's awesome. I have my fist sticky on my phone right here. But like we also are going to continue to operate some things, but determining what can we move from one bucket to the other, you know, just pie in the sky, like perhaps we should, I mean, I don't know, there might be a operator that wants to run a flea market. I'm not saying that we should do that. I'm just saying those are the kinds of conceptual thinkings I would want to think about. So that was kind of what I sent over to Laura for y'all's thoughts and reflections as we move forward.
Yeah, and I would, I love those points, but I would like to, I think we can go a little bit further than just saying we're multi-recreational because, this is actually probably one of the true places in Nashville. I'm trying to think real fast, trying to scan my brain, but that you can actually live and play, and potentially work. If you're working from home, depending on how they're developing, the problem. So this is actually a true place where you can actually live, play, and work, all in one spot. So just thinking about, in our discussion last month, I wanted us to think about the future, and like we're going to have 3 new buildings over potentially, if things go as planned. And, we have this beautiful soccer stadium, we have, the racetrack, we have these expo halls, we have 54. So this is actually a place that you can truly live, work, and play. And actually one of the reasons why I was late was because I ran into a couple of the Market Street folks at Barista Parlor, and we were talking about, the leasing and how it's jumped up. And they were just saying that, people don't typically come through here, and so we have to think about changing the mindset of people, and just saying that, the Fairgrounds is a place that you can now live at the Fairgrounds, and I think a lot of people don't know that. And we all did the tour, and I would love to live over there. I just need to borrow a couple of kids so I can, get that good rate that Dirk is offering. But it's beautiful, and so I just think that if we think about it from that standpoint, as we continue to go on, is that, it's more than what we see right now, but it's about the future.
So taking a view of the future, and I really like that live, play, and work. So reflecting back on the last meeting when we talked a lot about financial sustainability and charter requirements, essentially that mission without adding in what you just said, it's an idea could be financially support the Nashville Fair by hosting or producing auto racing, a flea market, and expo events. That is really a basic mission statement based on charter and private acts. Mm-hmm. If that sounds good to you as a start and you wanted to maybe see a little bit of the future brought in, to your point, I could work on that if that's the direction that the group...
Say that one more time.
Financially support the Nashville Fair by hosting or producing auto racing, a flea market, and expo events.
Oh, I think that is a statement of our current profit and loss sheet. I think I agree with Jasper that we should be much more forward-looking, and I actually don't like the fact that we're sort of tying the events together. I think it's okay for us to say we have to do these activities and some of them lose money and some of them gain money. And like, to me, I don't think we operate a racing program to support the fair. I think we operate a racing program because we think, or the people of the city of Nashville say, that's a good we should have. So like, we should operate a racing program. It is true that right now the racing program, the positive cash flow from that does support the Nashville Fair, but I just think I wouldn't link them together is what I'm trying to say. And I also think secondarily, Jasper, you really opened my eyes to, I was kind of where you were, Laura, which is really focused on the recreation event side, but we really need to be thinking much more forward about all the mixed uses coming in. Now, we have to also be mindful that the soccer stadium and the racetrack are always going to be huge components of that. So it'll be a especially playful neighborhood, but we need to keep those other elements in mind as well. So I don't mean to diminish your thoughts on that, Laura. I just think, for me, I don't view them as like tied together, if that makes sense. Like, I think they ought to be, they're all independently required. You know, like if we didn't do racing, we'd still do the fair, even if we lost money, because unless we get something to change in the charter. So what do you think?
No, I get that. I think what I was trying to do was tie the private act statement of that gives the Fair Board authority to enter into agreements for entertainment purposes to support the fair. That's how we were originally designed, was go ahead and, bring in all these things for the purpose of funding a fair. That's in the private acts. So if we want to, I guess it's just, a discussion here on how much you want to reference that specifics versus do and tie in the future, to your point.
Well, as you guys know, I am a lawyer, less one every day. Shout out Metro Legal over there. But I don't want to think of it so like, I mean, there is charter language and we have a mandate, and that's what we're limited and we're bound to do, is like what's in the charter, what's in the private acts. Those are the laws that establish this facility. But at the same time, like, if we can get the spirit of that with something that I think is a little broader, because really all those point in the same direction. Because the fair, it was established to create the fair. It was later established that we should have this facility to do the other charter activities that came about in 2010. But all of those also point in the direction of a business model about having a neighborhood that is vibrant, and there are events here that we do, and it's for the city of Nashville. Like, we want to almost take it up a level of abstraction, where we're not thinking, we are honoring what's in the words, but we're thinking more about conceptually, this is a entertainment and living and working district.
There's a reason why mission statements are really hard to write.
Yeah, they are, and I think we're going to get through this process. But I did have a question, because I was reading what you sent to us, and I noticed all the language still references the Tennessee State Fair. And how does that impact us? Because the state has moved the fair. Like, so do we need to change that language?
I can start, and it's it was noted that the charter and the private acts continue to reference things that we cannot do. Like, we can't issue a mill tax, we can't bond. But back at, originally in the private acts, it gave the Fair Board authority to do those things, and state law has since, taken that authority away. How, especially through the court cases we've had recently, it was determined we really call it a divisional fair versus Tennessee State Fair. So yes, there's still a lot of language in there that could be changed. I don't know if the effort to go and change private acts and the charter, I will leave that up to Metro Legal's opinion on changing it.
I think I know what the answer is going to be, but to me, that's important, but that's not important for us as much as it's important for Metro Legal and the council. If they want to revise the laws, we need to think conceptually about what we're really doing. Like, we know we're doing a divisional fair, And that's where I'm going is, and I think where Jasper's going is like, but even more so, like, what are all these acts that our elected officials are passing pointing us to? They're pointing us to running a neighborhood that is, again, revenue neutral and that is coordinating all these pieces and having, things that are for Nashville. I focused on the entertainment pieces, but also the facilities, especially the, all the different options as far as living spaces on the campus. So, like, definitely, like, that's a question to answer. Like, what do we need to revise the word Tennessee, say fair out of the thing? But, like, it's more about what are they pointing us to? They're pointing us to running a neighborhood here. So that's what I think. And again, mission statements are hard to write, but they also matter a lot. And so, like, how we think about the words we put on the page and how is important. So that's why I think getting that conception right and forward-looking is important. All right, Metropolitan, tell us the real answer.
Well, I was just going to state that I believe the intent of the charter provision is for the Fairgrounds to run a fair. To amend the charter, which is where this language comes from, it takes an amendment, like an amendment on a ballot, and then the public has to vote on such a change, and there's many steps that precede that. So, I mean, that would be a business decision whether to decide to go forward with a charter amendment, and then if you decide to do that, we could help effectuate it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I want to go down that road, but I was just curious because, if they moved it, like, it changed our mission, so to speak. It changed things by them moving the state fair, from here. And so, but it's saying that, but our charter saying that we operate the state fair, So I was just curious about that, but we don't have to go down that road. So I guess we'll just submit some more ideas and then follow up with the discussion next month, if that's okay with everyone.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is, like, it's like we have a lot of capital improvements in front of us. So it's like there's not a lot of time pressure, but at the same time, and again, we don't have a lot of time pressure because we're going to continue to receive an allocation from the city to cover the shortfall for the events we run that are running at a deficit because they're required by the charter. So there's not, like, time pressure on it. But I also think really reconceptualizing the fairgrounds as a whole is important. Like, I would love, and this may not be realistic, but something you've talked about in the past, Jasper, is, like, we need to think about, like, and no disrespect to the efforts we've already done. We've done some good efforts, especially out-of-home advertising around the fairgrounds, but, like, we need to really think about the brand of the fairgrounds and having a consistent marketing campaign to view it as an overall destination. And that's something we can't do alone. We need to do it with our partners and to help them achieve their efforts and incorporate their brands, which are frankly going to be more forward brands than ours. Like, Geodis is going to be the main brand around here. I think the racetrack would be a secondary, very important brand around here. But we need to be thinking about how do we talk about the great things we do, like the Fisk gym team being here. Like, that's awesome. Like, that should be in Axios Nashville in the morning because that's a cool story. I mean, William and Mary, that's a big college. They were here in Nashville. We didn't talk about it. So, like, we need to think about a brand and market. Rutgers is even better. You're right. Rutgers is even better. Yeah. They're all good. They're all good. But Fisk is the best. That's the point. But that's the point. Yeah. But the point is like, can we reconceptualize, to your point, it's like a mission statement, so it's the whole thing. And so we need to, part of that is then figuring it out and then talking about that, in the public. People need to understand what the fairgrounds is. And right now, I think they view it more as Geodis Park and the things around it. And I think we need to really recast that.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would go that far. I think people see Geodis Park as something separate until they get here. Then they realize it's on the fairgrounds, and that's just from some of the conversations, that I've had with people. It's just like, oh, the soccer stadium is at the fairgrounds? Oh, and so that means that we need to, get them to buy some soccer tickets too, but then, but once they get here, then they realize, oh yeah, it is on the fairgrounds. And it just points to the conversation I had earlier, is that this isn't a normal path for people because it's been so much construction, I think, and a lot of things that people sort of went around this area. And so now they can drive through the area, and so how do we get them there? How do we get them here? And we're off to a great start. It was very encouraging to hear what was said this morning about the number of leases that have, is upticked, and I hear that the leasing staff over there is working very hard, but like you said, I think it's going to take all of the campus partners, to sit down and talk about this. Commissioner Owens.
Do we have signage on this side of the facility? Anything saying Fairgrounds?
We've got some initial designs for wayfinding, so that is a project that is part of our infrastructure work that we're doing to do both pedestrian-friendly and motor-friendly signage at all the entrances and gates.
Yeah.
Well, and just you make a good point, Jasper, which is something I need to always remember, and I try to say it as much as possible, is that we're in the middle of a long-term construction project over basically a decade at this facility. So we're not done, and there's a lot of grace towards the staff because we are in the middle of it. And nothing we're saying is criticism. It's all pointing towards a future and improvements. And to your point about, reconceptualizing Geodis as part of the Fairgrounds, we also owe it to our campus partners to show the value that we can bring. And a lot of that value is about coordination, infrastructure, joint maintenance, joint, landscaping. I know all those things we've talked about in the past and are in process, but those are things we can do to make it easier for them to be successful and them to want to be sort of part of the association. So, again, having a really, really big, awesome soccer stadium in the middle of with parks around it is kind of cool. I mean, that's like an opportunity. So how can we hold up our end of the bargain and make that space really great and work with them closely to help their business really thrive? Because the whole point is, live, work, play for Nashville is really kind of what we're doing on the facility. So all that to say, I need to remember always we're in process. I get impatient, but those are all things we need to think about is how we talk about the facility as a whole.
All right, cool. If there are no other questions, as we can move on, or comments, we can move on to our new business. And the first item is information presentation from Metro Finance on procurement. And so we have Zach Kelly and Javal Watson. Oh,
Tall person was there. Good morning. My name is Zach Kelly. I am the Special Advisor for Innovation and Strategy at the Department of Finance and Division of Purchases. I'm here with my colleague, Javal Watson. And first of all, we want to bring regrets on behalf of our boss, Dennis Rowland, who's the purchasing agent for Metro. He had a personal conflict and couldn't be here this morning. But Javal and I will do our best in his place. And if we don't know an answer to a question that you have, we will find somebody who's better paid than we are to answer it, and we will get that back to you. I do want to say on just a personal note that I live about 2 blocks north of here and have 2 dogs who frequent the dog park, and we're season ticket holders at NSC, so I'm not just a Metro employee. I'm your neighbor and a frequenteur of the facilities that you have here. So thank you for your stewardship of this property, and thank you especially to Director Womack and her team, who do a great job managing the facilities and the events, and you're very good neighbors from my perspective, and that is noticed in the community. I'm going to give just a very brief overview of what we do in procurement so that I can answer your questions. I'm not a big fan of sitting through presentations that tell me things I already know or wasn't interested in, so I want to make sure you get what you actually need. The Division of Purchases, we are a centralized procurement system, which means that we buy all goods and services with a total cost of above $25,000, now above $50,000 starting on February 15th. Those purchases have to come through our office. We buy about $2 billion worth of goods and services every year on behalf of 51 departments and agencies that comprise the metropolitan government. That includes the Fairgrounds. And we do that with a staff of about 20 people who at any time are working on about 19 sourcing events. And I just want to make that point because it's budget season and it's always good to make those points during budget season. Anywho, all purchases come through us. We effectuate everything through a centralized system called iSupplier. In order to do business with Metro, you have to be registered in that system. We have about 25,000 suppliers registered in that system, which is because we are probably the third largest purchaser of goods and services in the state of Tennessee, behind, of course, the states and then the various university systems. Just to give you an idea of how that process works, the department submits something called a requisition. A requisition is a very simple document that tells us what it is that the department needs. That is given to our buyers. The buyers turn that into a solicitation, which is the document that we use to tell the market what we're looking to buy. We then take care of putting that out into the market, receiving those offers, negotiating the contract, and then coming back to you and handing it over so that you can get the goods and services that you require to perform the task that you need to perform. I tell people all the time that we are not an external service provider. We are an internal service provider, and it is our job to get you to build the relationships that you need with the private sector to do what you need to do for the public sector. That's a very quick and dirty version of what we do. You can also go to purchasing.nashville.gov. And if you click that top link there, it's doing business with Metro, and it gives you a more detailed process of how we work. It's done in layman's terms. I know that because I wrote it when I first came to procurement and did not know anything about what they did. So it was written in a way that I could understand it. So it should be written in a way that any of our suppliers or people who aren't familiar with the process can understand it. But I'm happy to take any specific questions that you have and either give you an answer or come back to you with something later on.
Yes, thank you. I had one of my questions is about the process. So as the board chair, I get all these requests for DocuSign to sign things that I have no idea where it started from. And I like to read. And so I'm trying to follow the trail, right? And so, for example, our security contract. I had questions about our security contract and the RFP, the agreement that I had to sign, that I was asked to sign. And there were some questions there as to whether or not, the company that was selected could actually fulfill the contract because of potential short staffing. And in the conversations, I found out that only one company bid on this contract. And so my question then was, well, how many companies in your system did the solicitation go out to? And I was told about 1,100. There are 1,100, people in the system or companies in the system that should have received this invitation to bid. And so then my next question was, well, out of 1,100, only one applied. You don't think there was an issue? Like, what? And so then my question, would be like, so then if we have questions, then my next question was, if I do sign this contract, and something, God forbid, something happens on this property, and it comes to find out after an investigation that it was because this company was not adequately staffed, which we already knew, we saw it, that that's a potential issue. What is my liability as the person who signed it? And so, but I couldn't get any answers. It was like I couldn't get any answers. But then it was just like, so what is the process to put it back out to bid? If I'm not comfortable with this, with this agreement, and I feel that 1,100 people received this and only one person responded, like, how do we get it back out, to people and make sure that people are actually seeing it? Because as someone who is a small business owner and I'm registered in the system, I don't get any solicitation. No, I get no communication from procurement. And so I'm figuring out, like, is it going to my spam? Is it going to, whatever the case may be? Like, so is it going to people's spam? Like, has there been any discussions about that? If you only have one bid, like, what's the process to put it back out there?
So let me try to take those multiple questions in reverse order, and you can let me know if I missed something. In terms of what your responsibility is in signing it, I would defer to my good friends at Metro Legal to answer that question, because I'm not an attorney and could not answer that question for you. In terms of, so let's put that one to the side. In terms of what happens when we only get a single offer? That is something that does happen on occasion. The fact of the matter is that government is not an easy entity necessarily to do business with. We do our very best to make that process as simple and straightforward as possible. But unlike in the private sector where you may answer to a boss or a CEO, or you may answer in a broader sense to a board, we answer to the taxpayers. And so we have a lot more hoops, so to speak, that people have to jump through to do business with the government. And so that is why sometimes people elect, especially for smaller contracts, and that security contract in comparison to the bigger security contract that Metro has is a smaller slice of the pie. So in some cases, businesses will look at that and say that that's not worth their time necessarily. That's not worth the effort is not worth the output that they get out of that. I would tell you that if there's only one offer received, we have to approve that single offer, which means that the purchasing agent has looked at that, has said that this was adequately publicized, that there's no reasonable expectation that if we put this out that anything would change and that we would get a different outcome. You can always refuse to sign it. That is your prerogative as a chairperson of the board. It's your prerogative to refuse to sign that. And then what you would have to do is you would have to submit a requisition, like outlined earlier, and we would put that back out. The pushback in that situation that you would receive from us would be only this, that we are not generally willing to rebid something where there's only been one offer received unless there's going to be a substantive change to the solicitation and the way that we put it out. Because if you put out the same solicitation again, in all likelihood, in our judgment as procurement professionals, you're probably going to get the same outcome. Relative to your question about how notifications are received, everyone has to register an iSupplier. When you register an iSupplier, you register with your commodity codes. And you register not just the commodity codes for your commercially useful function. So if you're a cleaning company, you would register for cleaning. But you also want to register for your ancillary commodity codes. And why is that? Well, it's for two reasons. One, a lot of our we operate a subcontract specific or a subcontractor race and gender specific contracting program. And most of Metro's contracts have subcontracting opportunities on them. If you build a soccer stadium, that contract is going to be a construction contract. But inside of that contract are going to be opportunities to work on finishing, on furniture, on landscaping, on design, on lighting, on pyrotechnics, on any number of things that are contained under that contract. And the only way you know about those subcontracting opportunities is if you're registered for your ancillary commodity codes too, and so you know where you have the opportunity to slot in. Our system, just like all systems, is not perfect. We always tell people when they register that you want to make sure that you put that iSupplier email on your safe sender list so that it doesn't go into your spam folder, it doesn't go somewhere else. If you're not getting notifications, my advice is always that you revisit the commodity codes that you have on there. We also do publicly post all of our solicitations. They're all available at purchasing.nashville.gov. So people can, as a backstop, regularly review that and see what items we have out there.
So, and I'm glad you said that, because that was another question I had was, what prevents us from sharing your link on email? Like, I think I asked that question like a couple of months ago. Like, can we say that, hey, these opportunities are available, click this link, it'll go to your website, you can
always do that. We encourage you to do that. You can always, and I mean, the only thing that you can't do is have specific conversations about the solicitation itself. But so long as you're saying, hey, we have these two solicitations out, here are the numbers, go to purchasing.nashville.gov and you can view those, and you can also provide them with our contact information, and we can take care of onboarding them in the system. That's never a problem for us.
And do you do, sorry, this is my last question, and do you do, I know you guys have workshops. Is there a workshop, like maybe bringing people in and make sure that they are using the right codes?
So two things. We have if you go to, I'm just going to keep plugging the website. If you go to purchasing.nashville.gov, we have our events posted there. And we have a training every month on how to use iSupplier and how to bid on those projects. And so if you're a new supplier, if you're a supplier who's been in the system but maybe isn't getting the notifications that you want to get, I encourage you to sign up for that monthly class. Go in there. You can also always email bao@nashville.gov, and that will get to our business development team, which is Draval. and they will, help you on your profile if that's something that you're having an issue with. We also publish a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for at purchasing.nashville.gov. And that has all of the events and opportunities and sourcing events that we have throughout the month. So there are several avenues that you have there.
Cool. Thank you.
Zach, thank you so much. This has been a very helpful presentation. Honestly, I do procurement at my company, but like you explained it really well, and the sort of opportunities and challenges and limitations that working in the public sector have. I think one thing, and it's kind of building into some of Jasper's questions, and something that Laura probably already knows, but I'll just say it. Where are the opportunities for us to improve the process or add value in the negotiating process from the staff level? Like, what I mean is, like, how can we get a better outcome as far as having more people bid on the project or get a better financial result, those kinds of things? Those are just examples, but like, where do you see as a procurement expert where we can add value to the buying process?
So I would say that the Fairgrounds, there's often a misconception that we in purchasing are running the procurement, are making the decisions on how we award contracts and what's in these solicitations. And we work very closely with the department. The departments submit their requisitions to us, telling us what they need, and we work with them as subject matter experts. We don't evaluate those contracts unless it's an ITB, in which case it's just price that you're looking at. So we award to the lowest bidder on that one. But for an RFP or an RFQ, we work with the evaluation teams who are experts from the department to choose which of those contracts or which of those vendors we award to. From my perspective, the advice that we always give departments is that if you want a larger pool, you have to have a less restrictive set of specifications. I will say you are in a bit of a unique situation in that there are a lot of things that you do here that have a super niche market. There aren't just a boatload of people who operate fairs. You have a very small, almost sheltered market for that. And so you may not have the ability to have a bigger vendor pool there. But in terms of if you're looking for a bigger vendor pool, you always want to see if you can pare your specifications down or see if you can leverage an existing contract that Metro has, which I will say is something that Director Womack does. We regularly have conversations with her, and you use a number of Metro-wide contracts as well.
Yes.
Sorry, Laura. No, that's really great. I think that makes sense, and Laura's about to tell us all the good things that they're doing, and we're obviously taking advantage of that. Given that we are in sort of the event production sort of business, and that there's a limited pool, which I also do in my main job, is there like a process to waive or relax purchasing requirements in any like niche markets? Is there any kind of process to, again, I'm not even saying that's an existing situation. I'm just sort of educating myself. Like, can we have like a waiver of something if there's some super niche type of vendor that there's only one in the whole world? Like, go ahead.
We have something called a sole source process, which we don't like utilizing, but it is something that is available to departments to use, and it's for exactly the scenario it's for two scenarios. It's for the scenario that you've outlined where there's something that is so niche that there is literally only one supplier in the market. I will tell you that, and you'll know this from working in procurement, increasingly in the world we live in, there are very few real sole sources because there's almost always a different source for something. It may not be the exact thing, but it's something that's substantially similar. So that is a very high bar, and we don't set those regulations. The Procurement Standards Board and the Metro Council set those. We also have sole sources that are available for items where companies would not necessarily bid. One of those that we work on with you all is advertising. Obviously, advertising is something that you need to do. WSMV, I just saw them here, so I used their name. Any of the television studios in Nashville are not going to come and bid on Metro contracts for you to run commercials on their sites. It's a very sheltered market. So we do have sole sources that are available for items like that, for subscriptions. If you're renting space on a Metro property, there's a whole section of the code on that.
No, Zach, when we talked about how do we optimize our contract negotiations, I will tell you, and I'm saying this just to give kudos to procurement. When we went out for our food and beverage RFP, and the first time we didn't get any responses, We worked really closely with procurement staff, including at the time the purchasing agent, Michelle Lane. She helped walk us through our scope of work to make meaningful improvements to it. And it resulted in 3 bids once we reissued that. So I want to give a lot of credit to procurement because they counsel us and they help us and they use their experience in making our scopes of work and our solicitation requests a better quality so that we can get more responses.
This has been very helpful. I really appreciate your time, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I lost my agenda. So next is, I was writing on the back of it. So next we will move on with our consideration of the MOU with NDOT for maintenance of stormwater infrastructure related to the new Craighead Street sidewalks from Coliseum Way to Bransford Avenue.
All right. I want to thank NDOT and our own Metro Legal for preparing this. What this is just an acknowledgement that once the sidewalks in that Phase 4 Craighead extension is completed, in order to treat the runoff from the sidewalks, there will be some stormwater infrastructure that empties out into Fair Park. And this is all designed with Water Services and NDOT and our program management team. But because of those structures, which my understanding is like a French drain or a trench drain that comes in off of those sidewalks, we need to make sure that we're monitoring those and clear them out periodically if there's any obstructions in those drains. And so this just acknowledges that NDOT's going to put in the sidewalks. We're going to maintain the stormwater infrastructure that's required by Water Services and engineering in order to treat the water that comes off.
Motion to approve the MOU.
Second.
So there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Director, did you want to mention the edit?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very
I was
minor.
going to bring it up in the
Good, thank you.
Our brains were
Right, yeah.
Yes. So
We
there was
added
one,
2 zeros. To the
yes,
end of-
one minor edit to the MOU that from what you got originally, and it is in section 2. The last sentence, the collected runoff will be discharged into the permeable paving parking lot owned by Fairgrounds. The original version had and Metro Parks. I struck that because we do own that. So it was just a clarification, removing Metro Parks from the ownership of that property.
And I have another question. Is there a contingency plan? Like, if this, I mean, I know that we work with a lot of people, but what if, because sometimes there's a lot of water, a lot of rain. Is there a contingency plan if this doesn't necessarily work as anticipated?
Not that I'm aware of. However, it has been through Metro Water review with NDOT. So my understanding is that Metro Water runs like scenarios and calculations for volume, okay, and therefore they build in those big rains as that infrastructure is designed.
Okay. Cool. Any other further discussion?
I'll just amend my motion to reflect the change to the document that Metro Legal just pointed out and that Laura talked about. So, motion to approve the MOU as amended.
We'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion in a second. And so no further discussion. We'll go ahead and take the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye. And without any opposition, this passes unanimously. And I think, is there any other discussion before we entertain a motion to adjourn? All right, well, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved again.
All right, all in favor of adjourning?
Let's move.
Right. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Say aye. All right, well, thank you all very much for participating in today's meeting. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.